The first interlocking paving stones were laid approximately 5000 BC. Ever since then, paving contractors and installers have been discussing, tweaking, and debating what is the best base to use for a paving project. Hey, hi, Glenn here, and in this episode of Landscaper Know-How, I will be sharing with you a project that we installed using a hybrid paver base. I've installed over 100,000 square feet of pavers, and to a commercial contractor that's not very much, but most of my projects were around 300 square feet. This particular project was only about 200 square feet, 5 sections in the front of the house and a sidewalk in the rear of the house. No site has the same exact characteristics, and those will impact the design and engineering of a project. This particular project was on a city lot that had been reclaimed, and all of the sub-base, the subfill, was in engineered soil, very granular and very well drained. The project was also north-facing, which means it would get very little sunlight, especially during the winter months. And so I did want to have a system that drained very well. A level-bedded natural stone was used in the dry stone retaining walls and the cheek walls of the natural bluestone steps. The bluestone steps were cut and thermaled to an exact 6 inches, which worked perfectly on the segmental retaining wall, the SRW base, full-depth base that held the natural stone steps. The project itself also had approximately 3 inches of drop after the steps were installed. Each of the landings were installed on the way up to the top. And so we had 1.5 inches of drop on the top section. We did 1 inch on each set of the steps. The challenge were the 2 middle landings had to be level with a little bit of a sheet drain to one corner because they matched up with a natural stone step. After the conduit was installed for irrigation and low voltage lighting, the sub-base was fully compacted and a geotextile, a non-directional geotextile, was installed before the dense graded base was put in, a class 5 aggregate with the proper moisture. Now that the lower sub-base of a dense graded class 5 material was fully compacted, we finished the installation of the retaining walls. The final design criteria that impacted the engineering and the development of the hybrid paver base was that we chose a clay paver to use in the sidewalk. That clay paver has a higher absorption rate, and we really wanted to have that well-drained system in place. The hybrid paver base system is a combination of both the dense graded base and a permeable paver base together, kind of taking the best of both. The solid aggregate base on the bottom to give some stability, and then the drainage of the leveling course of open graded material. We started by putting the number 57s into place. 57s are 3/4 inch clear granite, and we extended them all the way out past the edge of where the edge restraint would be. It's important to run your base material 10 to 12 inches past where your pavers will end to make sure that you have something that the edge restraint, the spikes that are holding it in, will catch and hold on to there. Next, on top of the 57s, the 3/4 inch, we would start to place the number 8s, the number 9s, or what we'll call the 3/8 inch clear granite. And each time that you add a smaller material to a little bit bigger material, it starts to choke off and fill in the voids down below. Here are the number 8s going down. We're doing a smaller area, so we're using a hand trowel and then the leveling guide, and we're doing a slight pack as we go, knowing that aggregate materials, coarse angular aggregate materials like this is almost 95% packed when it comes off the shovel, so it doesn't take much to secure it all down. The final step of this hybrid system is putting down a 1/4 inch chip, which is a very, very fine chip with no fines in it. It's just small, and it creates the perfect laying bed, level bed for the pavers to be installed. And one more thing about setting the level for the pavers. Different than what you would do on a dense graded base where you're doing the bedding sand, you would be doing the coarse washed sand. You'd probably leave it up maybe 1/4 inch so that after packing, you'd do that first pack and drive the sand up and settle the pavers down. When you're doing this hybrid, you don't need to leave it up maybe 1/16 of an inch at all because of the granite being completely packed into place. Then it's laying pavers just like any other job. So in here I do the banding all the way around, then I finish the field. We are wet cutting the clay pavers to keep dust down. Downside of that is the pavers will be wet. They'll absorb a little bit of moisture, and they will need, we'll wait a day, the next day, to do the polymeric sand in place. So the top little landing is all set. You can see that we had very little drop, that 1.5 inches over that 5 feet, and the edge restraint is all in there, all nice, tight, and set. As we worked our way down from the top, each of the next sections of pavings, the landings were set up and done in the same fashion of using the 57s, the 8s, and then that 1/4 inch chip, and then the pavers laid and cut into place. The two landings in the middle here did have the steps, the bluestone steps that had straight edges that provided a little bit of challenge. We did do a sheet drain to the opposite corner of where the two steps touched, so there was a little bit of drainage below, but part of using the hybrid method was that water just was not going to be sitting up in there. It would move through the granite rock and then move out into the subsoil. So very impressed with how this system has worked on this place here. A couple things different to deal with when you're installing the polymeric sand in a hybrid paver system. The first is that you do not have to do an initial packing of the pavers because you're not setting them into the sand. The granite rock is already at elevation, so no need to do that first packing. The second is there's some concern, and that's the lively debate right now, if the polymeric sand will slowly migrate out of the joint down into the open graded base. That is why we put that 1/4 inch chip in there and really minimized the ability for the polymeric sand to move. Then we followed kind of the standard method for doing poly sand, that light mist to begin with, and then we did 3 coats of a heavier flow of water to really make sure that the water activated the poly sand. I do appreciate that you took the time to watch this video on the installation of pavers on a hybrid paver vase. Please leave me a comment if you've tried a base like this before, or if you have any comments about what we did or how we did it. Would love to hear from you. And consider subscribing to the channel and hit that bell so you'll be notified when we do the next episode of Landscaper Know-How, or something in the shop, or just some fun project that we do here at the workshop at the gardens. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.